So Aberration just recently launched for ARK Survival Ascended, and it wasn't without a lot of issues. But what worked, what didn't, what are you upset about? There's one thing I'm certainly upset about, so let's go. You're right, kids, it's Raasclark, and welcome to your regular ARK community news. Before we begin, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, share around, and let's get into it. So yeah, ARK Aberration finally dropped at the end of last week, not without some severe delays. Seemingly stuck with one of the console builds, whether that was Xbox or PlayStation, we don't know. Seemed to delay the process, but that's what you get for having a cross-play game. You can't launch it on other platforms if one platform is still awaiting that build to put out. Can't allow those official players getting any advantage, right? But it finally dropped, and strangely just before it launched, though I think this was a clever marketing move, the Bob's DLC Steampunk trailer dropped before my theory, with it being, let's sell the Steampunk DLC pack first, let people know what they've got in store if they do buy this pack. And to be honest, they certainly delivered with a wealth of content that came with Aberration. In fact, kind of being the best part of Aberration, but also, you know, the worst part, which we're going to get to in just a moment. The launch of Aberration followed shortly, and it's fair to say it certainly landed with a bunch of issues straight off the bat. A lot of people, including myself, wasn't running this very well at all until the next patch, and in fact a lot of you out there are still having a bunch of issues, which is a shame, because when it works, it looks blooming gorgeous. It really does. It certainly takes a minute to adjust going into this expecting the bioluminescence of ASE and the darkness of the red zone. You won't find it. You won't find it. And I've been wondering why that is. Why is it so much lighter on this map than it was on ASE? I mean, you know, at least for me, having it super dark doesn't help anyone. If you can't see what I'm doing, then there's no point creating content on it, right? So there's a win there. Maybe it's the photo mode, maybe it's the way that Lumen works. Either way, it's certainly a much more lighter map now. Maybe it's because of how gamma works in ASA. If you've ever tried to gamma up, it looks absolutely disgusting, and just a thing you don't want to do, right? But who knows? Who knows the exact reason why? Maybe it's the Unreal Engine 5 itself, but it's here, and it's here to stay, a much lighter version of Aberration that, again, does look great when it runs great. But issue number one was it didn't drop with the SFR update. Didn't happen. They tried to implement a frame interpolation whilst they're working on this FSR 3.1 that's going to allow all of those graphics cards that we was hyping up and everybody was hyping up to be the momentary crossing of when everybody could play ARK Ascended, but that never arrived, and something else was offered that seems to be very, very hit and miss. We've seen a lot of reports of people's games just being insanely dark, pitch black in some places, and lighting being absolutely awful. I see a lot of people out there having a lot of issues out there. Try, if you can, play with the global illumination settings. I'm not going to say that's going to fix it, but it was something I suggested to somebody and it did for them, so you never know. But it turned out anybody playing with an AMD card on Steam were running into a bunch of issues as well. Crashes left, right and centre, with their engineering partners out trying to fix it as quick as they could. And I think they're there, or at least they're almost there. It was mentioned by Jat that AMD have reproduced the crash and they're working on a fix, so hopefully they'll have something for us soon. With no patch notes offered to reflect if this was definitely fixed by now, but it's certainly on the way. Some warning advisory things from the devs, and we experienced this ourselves. Don't try and fight Rockwell just yet. There's a bunch of bugs there where you're getting instantly pushed to Ascension and sometimes even dying en route there, and you're meant to stay in the arena to gain the element rewards that you can get. Right now, I have no idea how much element you get from Gamma, Beta, or Alpha. Some people have told me some figures, but until I can replicate it myself, I'm a bit unsure of what to expect there. On top of that, climbing picks, do not use climbing picks. Apparently, there's a bug where you'll get pushed outside the map bounds and you are screwed and you are stuck there. And if you try to log in, you're going to continuously crash, so you're screwed. Don't touch climbing picks. That's an absolute must. And then, of course, yesterday, CurseForge went down, so anybody with a modded server couldn't play for several hours. Everybody was upset about that one, but that's finally now been resolved. That seems to be happening more and more regularly. It's like every 1 or 2 weeks. CurseForge, what's going on, man? You got to get over this, get it resolved, because it's happening too frequent. And then you couple that with the issues that we're having wildcards, and it's adding on extra stress and extra annoyance that's coming in from separate parties now, and it's just making it feel so much worse when you can't access those servers. But it wasn't all doom and gloom, I promise you, with this new arrival of Aberration. There arrived new creatures, of course, like the Yi Ling that you can tame, and all of the aberrant creatures all have babies now, including even unique aberration creatures like the Karkinos and the Roll Rat. And speaking of the Karkinos, that is now breedable, as well as the Basilisk. Some great new features with this ASA version of Aberration. All of those creature feature stuff I covered in a separate video I dropped a few days ago. Go check that out. But within that video and during our live launch, it was found that yes, Pyromanes are on Aberration and nobody wants them. Why are these here, especially in the bioluminescence near a very watery looking biome? They just do not fit it. This is obviously a creature that speaks, give me money. I'm putting this in here so you can give me money. And we can all see it for what it is, and it just doesn't fit it. If you gotta have this thing in there, at least attempt to move it somewhere that it fits. I get that you've got to tame it with water. There was a great suggestion of moving it to the surface, and I think would add great value to the surface, being that it's already a horrible place to explore. Why don't you throw them in there as well, and gives more reason for people who want to tame them to get to the surface too. But of course the issue is you need to douse them in water in order to ride them. There were some great suggestions on some other ways of using tools or mechanics to douse them instead of luring them to water, with me suggesting, hey, why not? You've got this glob gun, right? Why not have the ability to actually hydrate whatever you shoot at? And hey presto, you've now got a way to tame the Pyromane, and guess what? You get to have to pay for the DLC for the Bobs pack as well as the Pyromane to tame the thing. Hey, Star Games, I'm here all day, baby. Awful take, I know, but the fact is they are here to stay now. They're on the map. They're not going to get rid of them. At least consider perhaps moving them or just reflecting something, because they just do not belong in the bioluminescence. They need to be somewhere else. And I'm pretty sure the mods that are going out that have disabled Pyromanes are going to be the most downloaded mods during this week. So as said, the Bob's Steampunk Ascent pack is brilliant. It is certainly worth your money. It's a lot of content. It's some great gameplay changing features, some awesome QOL ways to allow the grinding to be done whilst you go and do other things, and some absolutely beautiful aesthetics. I do think this is the most gorgeous looking set of features ever brought to ARK. Yes, I love everything that's arrived with this, yes, including Spider-Man swinging. But there's one thing that really shouldn't have been in this, and should have been in the main game, added to the main game. And in fact, it is in the main game, and that's what's more frustrating about it. It is, of course, the gene extractor tool, because everything in ARK now has gene traits. Every wild that you encounter, though, by the way, if you don't know, you need to do a wild wipe if you haven't already on your single player and unofficial servers. But every wild has a trait, and it appears there's levels. There's up to 3 levels, which can significantly change how that creature performs with a range of features. We looked at all of them in a previous video, which you can, using this gun, take out of those wild creatures and put into new creatures and stack them. And that's where the issue lies. Whilst anybody without owning the DLC pack can use these features, though aren't really able to see these features, so that's kind of annoying there. Though I'm hearing you can see them through the ancestry values, I'm not too sure. But of course you're going to want to use your bred creatures and want to move these traits into your bred creatures, lest we forget the rarity of the level 3 traits, and that you can have up to 5 stacks on a creature. It's far too much to be a paid feature. This is something that affects everybody. Everybody encounters this, whether you're single player, unofficial, or official. This is in the game for you now, but you are locked to a limit unless you pay for a feature that is, quite frankly, game changing. We haven't even begun to realize the potential of what these traits can do. I'm sure over the next few weeks and months, guys, ideas, crazy boss, wacky ways of beating bosses are going to be found. But guess what? You got to own the DLC to do this. It's such a redefining feature to how creatures can be bred and adds so much longevity to ARK, and it's behind a paywall. It feels like such a core base mechanic that it should be in the core game. That's the one part of this Bob's Pack that I've got to disagree with. I think there's got to be a way that we can reconsider how we can allow vanilla users to have more access to this. I don't know how, because obviously now if you take that away from people that paid for it, they're not going to be happy, but there's got to be some compromise there. Allow everybody to see these genes. In fact, I'm wondering, can mods be produced that can essentially do that? If you can see the genes, then why can't somebody just make a mod that does exactly the same thing? Maybe that might happen, right? And at least if that happens, happy days. But genuinely, apart from that, I think this is certainly value for money, added onto the Scorched Earth content that you get there, and of course the Extinction content, which is apparently planned to come out in December, though we'll see what happens there. It's definitely worth the money, but is it creating too much of a divide between the people that buy this and the people that play the vanilla game? Either way, it seems obvious that Snail or Wildcard are really pushing this, but it's plainly apparent in a very divided community of comments that there's a lot of you out there that aren't happy with this. What do you think needs to happen next? Do you agree with me that perhaps the gene extractor tool would be some compromise? Do you agree that the Pyromane needs to go? I'm sure you do. Go wild in the comments. So until the next one, my name is Raasclark. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, peace out.